Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Chief of Police Paco Balderrama, and I'm here to just detail some of the information about this last weekend's operation, which we're calling Stay Safe, Don't Race. So here with me today is Councilperson for District 2, Mr. Mike Karbassi, my Deputy Chief over Traffic Enforcement Division, who is Mike Reid. And we also have Ms. Dana Xiong, who's the mother of 17-year-old Allison Chang, who tragically lost her life on December the 26th. So before I get started, I really want to thank our partners in this endeavor, the California Highway Patrol, who's partnered with us, provided personnel, logistics, and other resources, the Fresno County Sheriff's Office, and also the Bureau of Automotive Repair, who has also been very key to this weekend's operation. Before I detail some of the stats and numbers, I really want to talk about the goals of this operation, which is basically to reduce street racing, because obviously we know it's very dangerous. It can lead to some deadly outcomes. We want to educate the public on these dangers and why they should not be involved. And also we want to maintain the peace of just our city on weekends and clear the congestion that sometimes happens during these street racing events and some of these sideshows. So just in 2021, we've had over 150 complaints about street racing all throughout the city, but a good portion of these complaints have come from the north side of Fresno. And we also know that this can be a major issue if it's not addressed. So I do want to talk about the incident that occurred on December the 26th of 2020 at Bullard and Palm. That's when a vehicle who we observed street racing just previously to the incident ran a red light and collided into another vehicle with multiple passengers, killing 4 people, including the driver of that vehicle. So we understand the dangers. That's why we're getting involved. And just in this past weekend, we had 189 total citations that were issued through the operation. We had 44 vehicles which were towed and impounded, and 10 DUI arrests. 3 citations were issued for street racing, and we had 8 vehicles that were cited for having illegal modifications. Along with that, during the investigations, we did recover 2 illegal firearms, which are commonly known as ghost guns. So we will continue participating in these types of operations until we see a significant reduction in street racing. It's something that the Fresno Police Department is taking very seriously, and we are very thankful for our partners who have helped us. You know, obviously the people who are here behind me, but also our law enforcement partners who, without their help, we would not have been as successful. So I do want to give the opportunity to Deputy Chief Mike Reid to talk about some of the logistics of this weekend.
Good afternoon, and thank everybody for being here today. I can't overstate the importance of what we're trying to do, and this has really put a face to the danger that's represented by street racing and sideshows in Fresno. And what we've seen over the last 6 months is an increase in that activity, but more importantly, the loss of life associated with it and the dangers it represents to the motoring public. So what we did was we looked at a twofold approach to this. First thing is education. And we've been using social media platforms and Nextdoor and other capabilities that we have to tell people the dangers of the thing. I mean, you see some of it, but you don't see all of it. We see on a daily basis hit and run reports of people doing sideshows where somebody was injured watching one of those things. We see cars being hurt and destroyed, actually, by some of the street racing activity. And we're also seeing people's property being destroyed in the same thing. So it's important for us to work, work with our business community, work with our partners over at City Hall. And I really want to thank Mike Karbassi for really making sure that we keep the focus on this thing. So what we did with the education is we told people this is what we're going to do. Didn't tell them when, but told them what we're going to do. The second thing we did was an enforcement effort, and we've done that in 2 ways. One is the big operation which we conducted last Saturday. Chief Balderrama did a great job of explaining what was accomplished that way. But what you don't see is the fact that by 10 o'clock on Blackstone and Nees, it was a ghost town. With all the officers that were enforcing every traffic citation they could see, we really cleared that area out. So cops do matter in this approach. What we've also done is operationally change some things in this agency. We're now using our motor officers in a little bit different capacity. We have them relegated to a gang operation, which has been equally successful for Chief Balderrama, but we're also using them now to really focus on street racing and sideshows. So the operation, it was CHP, which is a vital partner to this effort. It's SO because this occurs outside the city limits, and we have the capacity and the cooperation of all three of those agencies to go wherever this is and meet that need. And then finally, the Bureau of Automotive Repair. And you might think, why were they invited? They have tools that even officers don't understand, which is if you modify a car illegally, they can decertify that car, they can actually tow it themselves, and they can require you to change back that modification to factory standards. I'll tell you what, those guys don't get out much, I don't think, but they really enjoyed this, and they worked their tails off for us. So we're using that component, which is a ground component. We're also using fixed-wing aircraft to show what's out there, and also our helicopters. And both those things are able to give us higher capacity for seeing where this might be occurring, right? Not just Blackstone and Nees, but other parts of the city. In fact, we were at Beeheimer and Willow because they'd spotted something. So that's an important part of this thing. But I really want to remind everybody that the face of this is really the Xiong and the Vang family. And really appreciate Dana coming here. She's going to talk to you in just a little bit. But really talk about what this means to her family and the impact on this family. They're survivors of that collision that are impacted for the rest of their life. So this is about public safety. It's about preventing dangerous activity from happening and honestly keeping my family and your family safe. So I'm going to now have Councilmember Karbassi come up here and give a few words.
Thank you, Deputy Chief, and thank you, Chief Balderrama. This city is very committed to ensuring that we don't have the kind of incidents, the senseless violence from bad decisions that led to the killing of Linda, Christopher, and Allie. For me, it's very personal. I grew up in the district where this happened, but this can happen anywhere in Fresno. The City Council and our mayor are very committed to reducing this kind of street violence. When the mayor was police chief, this was a high priority for him, and as mayor, it's equally a priority. And the council, whether you're in Northwest, Southwest, Southeast, or Northeast, or anywhere in this city, this shouldn't be happening. And we don't want illegal street racing in town. But we couldn't do our jobs if it wasn't for our heroes, the men and women in law enforcement. On Saturday, I was very fortunate to be out there with them during the briefing, and I was able to share the story that Dana shared with me about her daughter, and she's going to tell you about Allie. And that hit pretty close to home for me. She was a real person. She should be here right now. But unfortunately, one series of bad decisions by a selfish person led to her death. And we're not going to tolerate it anymore. I want to make it very clear from the City Council and the Mayor, this city is saying no to illegal street racing. Knock it off, get it the hell out of our town. We don't want to see it anymore. And we have the resources behind me to make sure we can accomplish that goal. And we could never do our jobs without the CHP, the sheriffs, the police department, and the state resources of the Bureau of Automotive Repair. These folks live in our community. In fact, I even spoke to our undersheriff because he lives in the district. He was moved by what happened. And these victims, we're doing it for them. Make no mistake of it. The last thing I want to add is, Dana, on behalf of the city, we are extremely sympathetic to what you faced, and I want you to know that you did take the bold step of putting together a petition. We weren't going to wait. We wanted to get the resources out there now, and we wanted to respond because you are brave to come here because you don't want this to happen to anyone else. And I want you to know how grateful we are for you having that courage to be here today. And I'm going to introduce Dana Xiong, mother of Allison Xiong, the 17-year-old victim.
December 26, 2020. My phone rang close to midnight. Mom, we got into a car accident. It's bad. Everyone is unconscious but me. That night was a blur of events and conversations, but these are the things that I will never forget. I'll never forget the prayers that I said on the drive to the hospital. I'll never forget how numb I felt when the nurse told us that Linda had succumbed to her injuries and they couldn't save her. I'll never forget holding on to hope, calling every hospital asking for my daughter, Allie, because I was told she wasn't brought in as a patient and might have been taken somewhere else I will never forget sobbing into my hands after the nurse walked in with a social worker, sat me down in the lobby, and informed me that 2 were deceased at the scene. I'll never forget the conversation in the backseat of the car with my son, who was the front seat passenger in the accident, when he was released from the hospital the next day. And I had to name off to him the 3 that died one by one. I'll never forget how we hugged each other and cried as my son recalled how his Marine instincts kicked in and he gave first aid to his little sister and 3 cousins despite their injuries. I'll never forget when he told me that he questions if he did enough to save them that night. I'll never forget how Christopher's older brother fought for his life for over a week in the hospital. I'll never forget how heartbroken he was just because he and his 3 cousins went to pick up his little brother from work that night when their car was struck by a street racer fleeing the cops, running a red light, traveling over 100 miles per hour. For 2 months, we endlessly planned funerals. Although the last of the funerals concluded on February 8th, for a lifetime we carry the pain and the grief of losing 3 members of our families. I am so grateful for the outpouring of love, support, prayers, and donations that got us through this terrible, dark time. One generous donation made by Dr. Irwin Chow was gifted to our families 3 adjacent plots at the cemetery so that our loved ones were able to be laid down to their eternal rest side by side. Allie, being the youngest, rests in the middle of her 2 cousins, Linda and Christopher, on either side. Her brothers and surviving cousins tell me that it's so. Her 2 older cousins can protect her forever. I couldn't protect Allie that night, but today I am speaking out in hopes that safer streets may protect someone else's life. Saturday's joint efforts by law enforcement deserve recognition and praise for their immediate response in addressing the street racing problem. However, the work is just beginning. In January, Sandra Tomas, a dear friend of mine, started the petition Demand Fresno Enforce California's Street Racing Laws in honor of Allie, Linda, and Christopher. This is our city. These are our streets. Please support safer streets for your families, friends, and the community by going to change.org and help us reach our 5,000 goal. When our loved ones get into a car, it shouldn't be the last time that we see them. Thank you.
Thank you, Dana. If there's any questions, the group can address them now. Yes.
How do you address this issue at the same time you're still addressing the gang operation and trying to take on that now that the police chief here in Fresno? Did you have to deal with sideshows or street racing in the city?
Yeah, so street racing is kind of a national phenomenon. We have seen it in the Midwest and other parts of the country, so it's something that's affecting us nationwide. It is more prevalent here in California, so we just have to get it done. Obviously, we have a gang operation right now. We are understaffed as it comes to the actual numbers of police officers, but this is too important to not do anything about it. So really, it takes a lot of logistics, a lot of planning. It takes a little bit of overtime money. It takes some grant money to bring extra officers in for these operations. But that's the way we've gotten it done. And I do have to give a lot of credit to Deputy Chief Reid and his staff for coordinating these efforts, but also for those officers who are willing to come in and work the streets on weekends so we can get this accomplished.
Chief, are these like car clubs or gangs, and are they doing stuff on social media with this to kind of promote what they're doing?
So yes to all of those questions. We have seen these types of events being blasted out on social media, being advertised, and obviously that's something that can help us so we can know where these things are going to happen, so we can have officers there. But we are trying everything that we can, including social media, to try to discourage these types of events. One thing that did work for us this last weekend is that there weren't as many people out there as there would have been typically on a weekend. And as Deputy Chief Reid said earlier, 10 p.m. everybody was gone, and they were because they knew that we were out there, they knew that we were taking this very seriously, and that we weren't going to put up with it.
Chief, you talked about 150 complaints, and you said that the majority, or many of them, you said, are on the north side. West, northwest, northeast, is there any particular area where?
Well, thank you for asking that question. I actually looked at a map right before I walked into this room, and it's basically GIS mapping of the entire city, and it's really citywide. What we are seeing is some of the bigger streets, such as Blackstone on the north side, because there's just a lot more business up there, a lot more congregation of people. They tend to move north, but really it's a citywide problem. So we've seen this everywhere in the city. So it's not just specifically on the north side, but that is where we're focusing our efforts right now, because that's where they seem to be popping up right now.
Following up on the other question about the online chatter, do they use social media to organize these events? And if your cybercrime unit, keep an eye out for that chatter, because a lot of these races might come out of the area, might not necessarily be Fresno, is that right? So do they keep an eye on regional chatter?
So any intelligence that we can gather is good, and I can't really get into the details as far as what we monitor and what we don't. But I can also tell you that sometimes we get tips from people who number one, don't want to put up with this anymore, or even individuals who may be part of those groups that just say, look, this is dangerous, we don't want this to happen, and we'll get some limited information. So we have to anything that is actionable, we go ahead and act on it. But social media is very big with the younger crowd, and also with some of these racing groups. So we have to use anything that's available to us to address it.
I'm a little confused about enforcing the petition to enforce Fresno street law, because it seems like I guess what's the impetus behind it?
I'll let Mr. Karbassi address that.
So I think when you have 3 members of one family killed the day after Christmas, people get really upset. Now, last year, towards the last quarter of the year, I was getting a lot of complaints from residents living on Herndon, folks in Pinedale, folks along Blackstone, some on Shaw. So that's where I got a lot of complaints, Rich, about people being really concerned about street racing and noise. And then, of course, December 26th happened. We had already started an operation with Deputy Chief Reid with very limited resources, which again is why we had resources that night on Blackstone, which saw this individual in the black Mustang. But Dana and Sandra put together this petition because this is what they wanted. And they still have a goal of making sure there's still a voice. If you want to talk about the petition still going on, Dana, please.
So when the petition started, we were not asking for changing the law. We wanted just whatever was already written in the California Vehicle Code to be enforced to the highest penalties. And that night, there was a comment that was made that racers would issue a citation, and then that was it. And that was quite upsetting. So that was the reason behind the petition, and we still have it up on the website. We would like to get to our 5,000 goal. As far as signatures, we have around 3,300 signatures right now, but it's something that we would like to see to fruition.
Yeah. Lastly, we're really lucky that Sacramento hasn't decriminalized the vehicle code, so we're going to use that to our fullest advantage to be able to stop people. Look, it's not random. These are people that choose to race, and when you have a 4,000-pound vehicle, it could become a weapon. It became a weapon on December 26th, so we have to respond to this appropriately.
So just to add to that, and the question was brought up just a little bit earlier as far as our gang operation, and obviously violent crime is of very high importance, and it's something we're focusing on right now. But keep in mind, these are not street racing is not harmless. It's not just kids being kids. Quite frankly, if there's a drive-by, a gunshot wound to a certain degree is survivable. But when somebody collides into your vehicle at 100 miles an hour, it's a 5,000-pound vehicle, it's really not survivable. I mean, there's nothing that you can do to really walk away from that situation. So we are taking it very seriously, and we have to do that, and we're going to continue on until we see a significant difference.
Chief, having the state come in and help you guys in terms of, being able to confiscate vehicles and tow them away, how big is this operation?
It's huge. It's not just a slap on the wrist, and the estimates are that it costs, basically, if you're caught street racing in the city of Fresno, that it's going to cost you about $16,000. That's, in tow fees and fines and attorney fees. And people need to know that that's a big deal. That's a big deal for a teenage kid, $16,000. Also, your vehicle is going to be taken away for 30 days because obviously you're using that vehicle to facilitate your racing. So these are big consequences, but we have to get the message out there. And we really prefer that people comply. We really prefer just to go out there and educate the public and say, look, there's a real danger in doing this, and the police are not going to put up with it, and the community is not going to put up with it. So don't do it. Don't do it in our town.
What goes into creating these operations, and how frequently can they continue to happen?
So we do it as often as we can, but there are limits. We don't have all the resources in the world, and it does take a lot of logistics. It takes a lot of manpower. I think we had about 85 police officers, working the other night. That's a lot of police officers. That's a lot of vehicles. We utilize our air support unit so they can be our eyes in the sky. So a lot of logistics are involved, and it really is a burden on the taxpayer. But it's also something that is an important focus for us.
Is there any fear that as you guys start to crack down on this, it's just going to get pushed out further and further?
No, I think the goal is to change the culture to where activities such as street racing are just no longer tolerated or accepted in Fresno. And I think if we just continue with our message and continue with the consequences, that change will happen at some point. Any other questions?
Deputy Chief Reid, I wonder if maybe address some of the arrests that happened Saturday night. What were some of the stories that you heard, especially from the three people that were arrested for street racing? Mm-hmm. What did they say they were doing, and did they have any reaction to what they saw?
Those are all very good questions, and I'll tell you right off the top, nobody ever admits to street racing, right? So it's something that we observe, something that we document, and then something we take action on. But one of the things that really kind of proves the point of who we're dealing with is we took 2 guns off the street that same night, along with 10 DUIs, right? In a huge operation that covered the entire city. We focused on those driving behaviors that were most problematic and dangerous. And to have people with illegal weapons that are involved in street racing is a huge deal for Fresno. So it speaks to the amount of danger that we're seeing. One of the benefits of having a multi-agency approach, which is CHPSO and Bureau of Automotive Repairs, we know that if we enforce here, it's going to push it out. But we now have the capacity, especially with the fixed wing and high observation, to go where they go. And that's a commitment we've made to this. So this entire community outside of the city of Fresno is going to be safer for this effort.
All right, if there's no more questions, I want to thank the media for coming out here and covering this very important topic. And special thanks to Dana for coming out here, standing with us and supporting us in our efforts to make the city safer and to honor your loved ones. Mr. Karbassi, thank you for being such a strong supporter of law enforcement, and to our local partners for doing this with us. Obviously, the Fresno Police Department we can't do it alone. We need that partnership from the state, from the county, and we certainly got it this weekend. Thank you.
Chief, ¿podemos hablar en español?
Claro que sí. Sí, claro que sí. Hicimos una operación este fin de semana que se estaba enfocado en estos carros que hacen carreras en las calles. Obviamente tuvimos un incidente muy difícil que ocurrió en diciembre 26, donde 4 personas fallecieron en un accidente porque estaban jugando carreras en las calles. Entonces nos estamos enfocando para reducir este tipo de actividad, y este fin de semana fue un éxito y vamos a seguir haciéndolo, aunque se toma muchos recursos para hacer este este tipo de operación. Es muy necesario porque hemos perdido gente, vidas que son muy importantes y tienen mucho valor y tenemos que enfocarnos en esto. Entonces el mensaje que queremos dar es que es muy penado, es $16,000 si le quitan un carro por jugando carreras aquí en la ciudad de Fresno, y vamos a seguir adelante para reducir esto. Vamos a seguir haciéndola de vez en cuando, en la primavera y aquí en el verano, porque son los tiempos cuando juegan carreras. Fue un éxito, más de 85 policías, varias agencias, recuperamos 2 pistolas por lo menos, varios arrestos de manejando bajo la influencia de intoxicantes y les quitamos 44 carros, se los llevó la grúa que estamos jugando carreras. Entonces vamos a seguir en estas operaciones porque solamente así vamos a reducir este tipo de números. Claro que sí, ocurrió en diciembre 26 y fue una tragedia porque simplemente una familia estaba yendo a su hogar siendo inocentes, no teniendo nada que ver con lo que estaba sucediendo, y 2 carros que estaban huyendo de la policía. Uno se corrió una luz roja y se estrelló y mató a 4 personas, incluyendo el chofer de ese vehículo. Entonces fue una tragedia y estamos enfocándonos aquí con el Counselman, Mr. Karbassi, y Xiong, que es la mamá de una de las personas que falleció, para cambiar este tema, cambiar lo que está sucediendo aquí en Fresno. Bueno, todo eso ocurrió más de 2 semanas y básicamente había un grupo de más de 300 personas y sí tiraron botellas a los carros, pero en ese punto tenemos que hacer lo mejor para el departamento de policía. Tenemos video y estamos tratando de identificar a esas personas. Posiblemente.
Las personas, hay mucha gente hispana que está metida en esto, ¿no? En esto de las carreras. ¿Qué más le dice?
Bueno, el 55% de la población aquí en Fresno es hispana, entonces el mensaje también son para ellos, que si se van a involucrar en este tipo de carreras, entonces hay consecuencias grandes, y el departamento de policía va a seguir adelante para reducir este tipo de incidente y para encontrar a esas personas que están violando la ley. Y es lo que tenemos que hacer, porque tenemos que hacer este pueblo más seguro.
Es un crimen correr en las calles.
Es un crimen, y obviamente si se accidenta y causa a que una persona se lastime o peor que mate a una persona, entonces los cargos son algo mucho más significante. Bueno, en este punto al norte del Fresno, simplemente porque las calles están más anchas, hay mucho negocio, hay mucha más población, entonces estos jóvenes están yendo a esas áreas porque hay más personas, pero hemos visto este tipo de actividad por toda la ciudad.
El hecho de que sean los jóvenes que están corriendo más, quiere decir que aumenta este delito, ya que ellos a veces
Claro que sí, las consecuencias son grandes, entonces les podemos quitar el carro por 30 días o más, y las multas son más de $16,000, entonces algo serio. No tengo las cifras, pero obviamente se les puede dar una multa, y una persona de menor de 18 años no puede ir a la cárcel por algo así menor, pero sí se les hay multas y sí se les puede soltar allí en la calle para un pariente o otra persona responsable, para que no vayan a la cárcel.
También hemos hablado de los costos en dinero para la ciudad.
Sí, obviamente cuando tenemos 85 policías trabajando en una noche, que típicamente los necesitamos patrullando, esos son costos que la ciudad tiene que pagar. Entonces eso es realmente costos para toda persona que trabaja aquí en esta ciudad, porque todos ellos pagan sus impuestos, y sus impuestos deben de ir para un punto para mejorar a la comunidad.
Estas operaciones van a ser básicamente solo los viernes y sábados.
No les voy a decir cuándo van a ser. Entonces, cuando nosotros, la información que tengamos, si van a ver este tipo de actividad, vamos a hacer una operación. Pero obviamente esto no nos ayuda si ponemos en un calendario cuando vamos a hacer estas operaciones. Pero lo que sí queremos que la comunidad sepa es que las vamos a seguir haciendo hasta que estos números vayan para abajo.
¿Cree usted que se van a mover para otras ciudades?
No sé. Lo que no queremos es que lo hagan aquí en Fresno. Es todo. Muchas gracias. Thank you. Thank you.